So this is the perfect example of white privilege creating false narratives, creating an illusion to think that people classified as white are being dominated, subjugated, mistreated by a force so powerful that they cannot defeat it, right? By a force that only controls all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and more. Creating an illusion of victimization. Creating that illusion that they're being victimized by another group of people because of their skin color. Okay? That's the illogical, fallacy of reverse racism. It doesn't exist. It's a myth. It's a false narrative that the dominant white society is trying to always conjure up and say, see, this black person, this uppity black person, he fired me, right? This uppity black person fired me because of XYZ. Now I'm going to break this down because there is such thing as black people being racist, but there is no such thing as black people practicing systemic racism. Doesn't exist. It never has. So with this particular article, and shout out to one of my subscribers for pointing this article out to me, a former Atlanta Hawks employee, Atlanta Hawks of the NBA, former employee by the name of Margot Klein. Okay, and I'm gonna read this article so you guys can get a gist of what's going on. It says here, a fired Atlanta Hawks employee is suing the organization allegedly it discriminated against white employees and terminated her when she complained. In a lawsuit filed Friday, Margot Klein says Hawks External Affairs Director David Lee, who is black, promoted a culture of discrimination against white people, especially white women. Klein, who is white, worked in the NBA's team's corporate social responsibility department as a community development coordinator for 5 years. That's a pretty good damn tenure. And I'll read a little bit of more of the article. It says Klein alleges that Lee was dismissive and exclusionary toward white employees and would often make jokes about white culture. Wow, these jokes. Hiring and promoting black employees who Klein said were less qualified over white people, according to the lawsuit. Klein said the organization ignored her complaints and instead unfairly scrutinized her work and impeded her ability to do her job, often gossiping and ridiculing her. The lawsuit also alleges white coworkers were told not to speak with Klein or they would lose their job. That's freaking hilarious. Hilarious. So let's just break this down. So the Atlanta Hawks, NBA organization, right? First of all, as you know, with the NBA, the last time I checked, as far as the players in the NBA, I think over 75% of the league's players are black or classified as black, right? Now, let's get to the power structure. The players who receive checks by what? Their owners, okay? The owners of the NBA, as far as their racial makeup, over 90% of the NBA owners are classified as white or non-black. There's only one black NBA owner. I'm not talking about quote unquote minority. I know there's another person that's in, I think, Sacramento Kings, who is not really classified as, non-white, but Michael Jordan specifically is the only black majority owner in the NBA. Now let's get to the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks is owned by a white Jewish man named Tony Ressler. So this person, Margot Klein, is that her name? Margot Klein is suing the Atlanta Hawks based off an employee. Keyword, employee. Atlanta Hawks External Affairs Director David Lee, who is black. David Lee, who has a position called the External Affairs Director, is an employee, not an owner. Okay? Doesn't have any shares in the organization. Has no power whatsoever. He's an employee. So he is allowed to do things based off rules and regulations set forth by the powers that be, which is this man here, the majority owner of the Atlanta Hawks, Tony Ressler, who is classified as a white Jewish man. Okay? This guy is a billionaire. Net worth is $1.72 billion. He's a billionaire. So he's the majority owner of the Atlanta Hawks. So again, what kind of power does David Lee have? He is allowed to, quote unquote, discriminate against white people because the powers that be, Tony Ressler, let that happen. So this is what happens, family. When you have a prominent person who is classified as black in a top-notch position, Atlanta Hawks External Affairs Director seems like a pretty top-notch position, right? Prominent position. And you have white people, people classified as white, who work in that realm that are, let's just keep it real, that are jealous, that are envious of this black person in that position. They're jealous. So they create false narratives of being a victim of so-called racism, when in fact, David Lee doesn't have the power to practice systemic racism. Again, it's a false narrative. Black people never had the power to create laws, to create, rules and regulations to mistreat other people based off their skin color. Never. So David Lee has power that he is allowed to have based off the power structure of the ownership of the Atlanta Hawks. All right. So basically, this lawsuit right here, family, this is a lawsuit to shake up the uppity black nigger who's in this prominent position that's in the Atlanta Hawks. She's basically trying to get this guy fired and wants his position. Now, what I'm saying to you is, as far as her being so-called discriminated on or whatever the case may be, that could be true. It could be true. But she's suing the wrong person. The person that she needs to sue is this guy here, Tony Ressler, who is the majority owner of the Atlanta Hawks. So, again, black people are only allowed to do things based off a power structure. It's just that simple. This guy, David Lee, was allowed. This is picture right here. This is how he looks. He was allowed to be so-called discriminatory, right? And I'm going to say allegedly, because I don't know if that's true. We don't know if it's true. But let's just say he did so-called discriminate against Margot Klein. He doesn't have the power to do that willfully. He was allowed to do that. Allowed. Because this guy here runs the show. He's the majority owner of the Atlanta Hawks. It's just that simple. So, again, black people, don't fall for this okie doke by the dominant white society creating false narratives of reverse racism or discrimination. And speaking of discrimination, y'all remember that debate between Tariq Nasheed and that dude Andrew Schultz? I think it was last year or a couple years ago. They did a debate, about racism and discrimination and stuff like that. And Andrew Schultz brought up the point. He tried to, I guess, trying to shut down the talking points of Tariq Nasheed about systemic racism. He tried to bring in Oprah Winfrey, Oprah Winfrey, who owns, her own network, or I believe she used to own her own network, or whatever the case may be. But when she had her own network, television network, he was basically saying that Oprah Winfrey, she can have the power to discriminate against white people and make sure they're not hired for her own television studio. Now, that is true, but you can go further into that, right? You can go further into that because, yeah, Oprah Winfrey can discriminate, right? Because she's the majority owner of her network, but that's not systemic racism. Systemic means when you can create rules and regulations to discriminate against a group of people because of their skin color. That means that very same white person that's being so-called discriminated against Oprah Winfrey, right? Okay. That white person who can't get a job at Oprah Winfrey's job, right? At Oprah Winfrey's establishment, she can go to another network and be hired on the spot. So if a black person, right, is being discriminated against a white-owned television network, right? Let's just say this person wants to get another job at another television network. People classified as white can create laws, rules, and regulations to make sure that black person cannot get hired anywhere in any industry. That's the power of systemic oppression, aka white supremacy. So again, we've never had that power collectively as a group. All right. We've never had that power to discriminate against another group of people based off color. Never. And before I leave, family, I'm going to read to you. Y'all know that I'm a student of Neely Fuller Jr., our elder, right? As his saying goes, I'm still learning. I'm going to read to you guys the compensatory definition of racism real quick. All right. And this is from his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a compensatory counter-racism codified word guide. Page 322. All right. Definition of racism. It says here, racism. Use this term to apply the scientific practice of unjust subjugation, misuse, mistreatment, and or abuse of a persons classified as non-white by persons classified as white on the basis of color or non-color or the basis of factors associated with color or non-color and or the system of white supremacy. Note, it is incorrect to use the term white racism. To use this term, it is to imply that racism exists in a form other than white supremacy. It is important to study the ways that others use the word racism and to ask many questions about the way it is used. All right. And it goes down further with breaking down racism, but you get the gist of the compensatory definition of what racism is. There's only one form of racism, and that's white supremacy. Bottom line. Bottom line. All right, family. So again, this is a false narrative. I believe this chick Margot Klein is just mad that the uppity black nigger has a prominent position as the external affairs director, and she's just upset and jealous that he has power he's allowed to have. All right. That's it. He's allowed to have this power, that so-called him being accused of discriminating against white people. He was allowed to have that. He's just an employee. Just like her. Just an employee just like her. He relies on resources owned and controlled by the dominant white society. So do I. So do you if you're classified as black and you're listening. It's just that simple. Just that simple. All right, family, those are my thoughts on that. Leave your comments down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about this article. Do you think this person, Margot Klein, has a point that David Lee discriminated against her? And does she have a case? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. I like to read your comments on that. I read all my comments, family. And that's basically it about that. Like I said, family, this is just, I believe it's just such jealous and envy. That's all it is. But anyway, like I said, leave your comments down below in the comment section. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Hit that bell notification icon so you can be up to date on my latest and greatest content. All right, family, all my social media contacts is down below in the description. If you have any inquiries or suggestions, you can email me at GMOGmedia@gmail.com. Until next time, family, Chauncey, a.k.a. the Black Separatist, signing out.